everybody. Thanks for coming out today. I'm Karen Lynch. I'm one of the candidates for Board of Supervisors here in Skippack. I'm going to kick things off just by saying how happy we are to be here to have a conversation with you. I'm going to let everyone that's up here introduce themselves and tell you why they're running and what they're passionate about. But I first want to thank Richard and Joanne for making this happen, and Tom, who couldn't be here tonight. This is very generous of you, and we really appreciate it. So I might as well just go ahead and jump in. I am a retired from a 34-year career in corporate. I've got a lot of experience in sales, marketing, managing budgets, managing for profitability. And yeah, I've been retired for about 6 years now, and I'm really enjoying that. But I've jumped in here to help because I really see some things that go on in our township that don't seem to be very transparent and don't really invite and engage residents. So that's really why I've kind of jumped in to run. And if I look or sound familiar, I did run 2 years ago. I filled in for somebody who dropped out, so I had a 6-week campaign, and that was a little too tight. So this time it's been much longer, much more preparation, and I've had an opportunity to get out and meet many more people. So I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime here, the other supervisor candidate, Kathy.
Hi everybody, I'm Kathy Lesage. I've lived in Skippack Township for 25 years. My husband and I live in carriage run townhomes, which are right behind Skippack Village. If you go over the little covered bridge by the hotel there, we live there. We have 2 kids in the Perkins Valley School District. Our son just started high school this year, and our daughter is in her first year at the middle school. So we are extremely invested in the community. My professional background is in editorial and marketing. So my skill set is very much communication, which is something that I think that we could use more of from the township and the people that run things around here. I also know how to ask good questions, and yeah. Communication, here I'm really selling myself, aren't I? Okay. Ask questions and problem solving, that is the other thing, very good problem solving. So I think right now I will turn over to some of our school board, to Phil, sorry.
Okay, my name's Phil Winpenny. I'm the 3rd candidate in Skippack Township. These 2 are running for supervisor, I'm running for the audit board. My background, you probably guessed, I don't come from this area originally, but I've been here a long time, and I just re-met Kathy from several decades ago. We used to work together. I came over here with Sperry Univac back in the day, and Unisys now, for those not that old. So we've been here since the mid-80s. My background is in the marketing and business operations. I spent a lot of time working budgets, working how we're going to spend our money on marketing, managing the business as a whole. So I have 40 years of marketing, sales, and business operations experience. On top of that, I live over on Meadow Glen, over off Crossroad, the 55 plus community there. I was the original chairman of the finance committee, so I got started from zero to making sure we had a good handle on all the finances. So I have some excellent experience, I think, to bring to the audit board when we get there. So we've lived in Meadow Glen and Skippack about 11 years now, so I've got to know the community and certainly got to know a lot of people as we've walked around and knocked on doors.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sarah Evans Brackett. Again, thank you for having us tonight. It's so nice to have an opportunity to speak to a large group. I am the current Vice President of the Perkins Valley School Board. I was appointed 2 years ago when a member resigned, a member who's actually running on the opposing team now. There had been a big turnover in the board 2 years ago. A group that ran as PB Cares all won. And the gentleman that I replaced did not win and tried to resign and get back in in another position. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for him, but he is running again now. I have lived in Skippack for 18 years. I was a Navy brat growing up, so this is the first time I've lived anywhere in more than 4 years. But I have my bachelor's in psychology from Penn State. Great win last night, if I have any Penn Staters out there. And I have my master's in social work from the University of Pennsylvania. So I practiced for a number of years as a school social worker, working with students with special needs. And then when I had my own kids, I have been fortunate to be able to stay home with them. So I have a 15-year-old who's also just started high school. It's been big stress for me. I know you guys have all gone through that, but I'm already thinking, oh, it's only 4 years till college. And I also have a son who is a 7th grader. So I am very invested in our school district, which you'll find as all of my co-running mates discuss, that we're all parents of students in the district, which is a change for members of the board. In the past, it has been senior citizens who have not had kids in the district maybe ever, or at least in a very long time. We have, currently on the board, we have someone who homeschooled her children, and we've had people who sent their kids through Catholic school. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but they don't understand the inner workings of the school district. And so as parents, and we're very involved parents. I was president of the PTO at our elementary school for a number of years and still volunteer in classrooms. We know what's going on. So when administration comes to us and says, oh, we're doing this, this, and this, we say, really? Because my kid came home and said he hasn't done that all school year. So we've been able to cut out some of the extra spending on different things that we're being told were happening and really haven't been happening, or teachers coming to me and saying, why is the administration recommending this? But that's not something that would be helpful to our students at all. So that's where I really think our group brings the value. I will pass it on to my other running mate.
Hi everyone, my name is Rena Kolar. I am also currently on the school board. Like Sarah, I was appointed when a person resigned, and he is also running again. So we're not really sure what happened, but he resigned in February 2018, and I was appointed to take his place and finish out his term. So this is our first time actually having to run a campaign. Both of us were appointed, but I think we've been doing some really good work that Sarah has already been talking about. But the reason I wanted to be on the school board, I too have children in the district. My oldest is an 8th grader at the middle school, and I have twins in 6th grade at the middle school. So since they've been in kindergarten, I was very involved, volunteering whenever I could, and this just kind of seemed like the next step to really take charge and see what's happening for their education, and also, like Sarah said, holding the administration accountable for things that maybe we thought should be happening and weren't. So it's been a really good experience to be a parent and to see firsthand what's happening in the schools. Professionally, I'm a clinical psychologist. Right now, I work at the counseling center at Science College. So I work with college students all day long, and that's been really helpful in terms of a perspective too, because after being in PD, kids go on to college or other endeavors, so it's kind of a nice perspective to have to see what we need to be preparing our students for the future. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk more if you have questions about our team, but like Sarah said, we're all parents, we're all very involved, and we're just happy that you're here to listen to us and hear some of our ideas.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming out on a rainy day. My name is Laura White. I am currently running for school board for the first time. Kim and I both are new to the process, and I have been, a little bit about me, I've been a Perkins Valley resident for 20 years. I have a 9-year-old that goes to Skippack. She's in 4th grade, and I decided to run for school board after I was lucky enough to make a career change and be afforded the time and the ability to put towards this type of endeavor. It does take quite a bit of time, as I know the 3 folks that already sit on the school board, they could attest. Professionally, I have a background for about a decade or so, about 12 years, in project management and operations. I worked for a contract furniture company. And I just really wasn't afforded enough time at home. So stepping away from that about 2 years ago, I got more and more involved with my daughter's school and different programs and opportunities to volunteer there, and then I wanted to do more. So, when I was approached to ask whether or not I would be interested rather in running, I, of course, jumped at that opportunity and started to go to the school board meetings. In that process, I found out a lot goes on that most times does not get communicated properly to the masses, and that there are multiple ways to attack a problem, especially things like budgets, teacher salaries, taxes, all of those things. So what I have enjoyed watching from the audience side of things in the last 8 months is the diligence that our current board, and 3 of our current board members are here today, how they approach challenges with regard to things like overall budget decisions in terms of what's best for the students, how to trim the fat, so to speak, how to be fiscally responsible without the sacrifice of our kids' programming. That's probably my biggest interest, is to hold the school district and the administration accountable for all of the folks in our community, because there are quite a number of you folks that don't have children in school currently. But there needs to be a balance between the families that are taking advantage of the school programs, as well as being fiscally responsible for everybody else. Because obviously we're all taxpayers, but we benefit with our children directly, whereas you benefit from it from a community standpoint. So that's been my most impressed moment in the last 8 months, is just watching the conversations that happen and the due diligence. It's really pretty remarkable. So, but I, like Rena, also look forward to answering any questions after we're done introducing, and thank you so much for having us.
Hi, I'm Kim Mears. I have lived in Skippack for 11 years, and we have a son who has special needs. I have worked with the district since he was in kindergarten with the administration and different teachers, especially in the area of special needs. And our school district has a 10 to 12% population of students who have special needs. Let me backtrack for a second. I graduated from James Madison University, which is in Virginia, Harrisonburg, Virginia. That's where I lived most of my life until I transplanted up here. And I am currently collaborating with 2 Pennsylvania State education groups who do trainings and work with administrators and teachers and families on how to really kind of solve the special education question and do it being fiscally responsible to the students who need these services, and just trying to figure out how to move forward in a way that makes sense. So that's my interest, and I have learned a lot and look forward to, I'm also very interested just in the overall feel of our schools, and how do we make sure as a community that the students that come out of the schools are really good practicing citizens, because that is something that we need in our community. And I think our school's doing a good job right now. We just want to keep it moving in the right direction. So I look forward to talking to you and answering any questions.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Matthew Dorr. I was appointed to the school board last year, so this is mine, like Rena and Sarah's, first time running for re-election. My wife and I chose Skippack Township solely on the reputation of the PP school district, and we have not been disappointed. We have an 8-year-old in Skippack, and we have a 6-year-old in Middle School East. But I wanted to run because I was raised with a service mentality. I have a passion for school safety, making sure the school gets the resources that it needs to function properly. One thing that no one said yet is I would love to have more people at our meetings. We have Monday meetings, first 2 Mondays of every month, unless there's a Columbus Day and it's the Tuesday. But see where your tax dollars are going. A lot of you probably worked in industries that bring value. I mean, we only know what we know, the 9 of us. So I look forward to talking with you guys tonight, hearing your questions, your concerns, answering them, but we'd also love to see you guys at some of the meetings. So thank you for having us.
Okay, one of the things I neglected to say is I think your invitations did say that Joe Webster, our state representative, would be here, and he's let us know that it'll probably be 5-ish. So he had to get to the airport and back, so we'll look for him as he walks through the door, and he'll have an opportunity to address you as well. I think at this moment, this is your meeting, and we do want to get to questions. I just want to also acknowledge that we have 2 guests in the room, Justin and Lenore Glennon, just wave, who live adjacent to the airport over on Rosewood Circle. And so they are here by invitation because they are concerned about some of the development that's planned. And Justin has been actively pursuing a lot of information out of the township board. And so when we get to that topic, he can help us answer questions on that too. And we're going to try and stick to facts as we know them. And I think we talked about meetings. That's another opportunity. So we have some information to pass out if you do want to stay engaged with the Board of Supervisors in terms of their regular monthly meetings, zoning meetings, planning commission meetings, because all that is going to be a big topic of those meetings going forward. So I think at this point, we just wanted to say a couple of things about what we don't think is currently happening and what would be different with a Kathy, Karen, Phil representation on the Board of Supervisors. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about planning and collaboration. So we believe there is what they call a comprehensive plan for the township. But the comprehensive plan should go beyond just who's building more homes and where, and who's making out really well in that effort. A comprehensive plan needs to take into account infrastructure, the impact on infrastructure, the impact on our environment, the impact on stormwater management, and all of those things. So that's what we get concerned about, is how are we really taking a look at all of those things and have a plan for what do we want to be as Skippack Township 5 years, 10 years from now. Do we want to preserve our rural heritage and character? Is that part of what attracted a lot of us to this area? Not against development, but I think we have to be pro-development in a very respectful and mindful way. And one of the ways that you can do that is by being a member of the Central Perkiomen Valley Regional Planning Commission. So you take those letters and make an acronym and type that into your computer. You can get to that website. What that is a consortium of neighboring towns. Lower Frederick, Upper Frederick, Perkiomen, Collegeville, Trapp. They are all members of this consortium, and Skippack was at one time, but no longer is. Why do they not want to be in an organization like that, where everyone sits in a room and talks about plans for the future? Because what we do here and what they all do out there impacts all of us. So really, that kind of planning is something that we would seek if we were representing you on the Board of Supervisors. And I know that Sarah has a passion about that too, because it affects schools. Every time you add 26 people to the community, every 26 people requires a classroom. And I think I heard Sarah tell me that the schools are a bit crowded already. And I know that that affects taxes. So, and I know that's something you're passionate about, because I've knocked on your doors, right? So I think it is all intermingled. And I think that's a responsibility that we would be proud to take up with the current Board of Supervisors. And the other thing is, with regards to that, is something called a study that we know have been done. Cost of community services ratio. There's a study that's been done, and I'll just cut to the chase, and I can always tell you how you can read this study. But before you start planning to add more homes, if you did this study, inevitably you would find that in most cases, every dollar of revenue, because there's a myth about adding more people, you add more tax revenue. For every dollar of new tax revenue that you add through residential development, you're going to have to spend $1.15 in infrastructure. Most of that is schools. rural, open space, and business certainly do a better job at mitigating tax increases. So that's the kind of thing that, like, why not do a study like that before we go off and do all of these other things? So that's something I would advocate for, and Kathy and I would advocate for on the Board of Supervisors. And Phil, being a good financial guy, would certainly take, interest in those numbers. So I think that's what I wanted to say about planning and collaboration. Oh, no, one more thing on collaboration. Montgomery County has a grant program. It's 2040 grants. You can go on the website. There's also transportation grants. Skippack has never applied for a Montgomery County grant. The average grant brings $100,000 into the community. Pennsburg got a grant for $100,000 to expand their library. We don't have a library here. I'd love to see a library, but that's me personally. Most of the grants are between $10,000 and $200,000. The average is in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. And it is for beautification. It is for just quality of life improvements. And I know I've knocked on some doors where in particular, the one that sticks with me is a woman in a wheelchair, severely handicapped. She has a specialized van, and she told me she doesn't go into Skippack town because it's very difficult for her to get around down there. And I was thinking, well, you know what? There's a lot of communities where I'm sure there are people who use walkers, canes, wheelchairs that maybe have the same kind of feeling. So why not pursue some sort of project where we could get some additional cash influx from the county to do some improvements in that area? That's just one idea. So I'll pass it to Kathy. I think she's going to talk about something that's important to her.
I want to add on to what Karen just finished up with as far as Montgomery County grants and accessibility. Montgomery County also has a program called Complete Streets, through which they give out grants, and that is to make sure that the roadways throughout the county are accessible to everyone, not only vehicles, but pedestrians, people with accessibility and transportation issues, bicyclists, and I think that is something else that we would want to pursue in cooperation with the county, is to get some money for that, to address these issues. And then going back to when I introduced myself, I mentioned communication, and that is something that I don't feel we have enough of from the township at the present time. The township has a website that frankly they do not update nearly often enough. I think at the moment it still has the 2018 township budget on there. They also send out a newsletter, I think, twice a year. To me, in this day and age, that's not enough information from our governing board. They could have email newsletters that people could opt into. So if your email inbox is already, overflowing and you're not interested, that's fine. No one would have to get that if they weren't interested. But I think it could be a service to people, who do want additional information. Some of our neighboring communities actually televise the board meetings, and that certainly does not happen here. The supervisors' meetings are monthly, the second Wednesday of every month at 7:30 over at the township building on Heckler Road, and they're not always as welcoming as they could be. And I, would prefer to see them videotape the meetings, and then those could be sent out either through the email newsletter or via Facebook or via podcasts or all the many different social media options that we have now. And I think that would go a long way to just having some more transparency so that people know what's going on in the community.
Yeah, also we're helping each other out here. The meetings last on average 30 minutes, and I don't think you can do the people's business in 30 minutes. So it does seem to me that maybe, that decisions or conversations happen out of sight of the community, and that's not supposed to happen. There are sunshine laws that prohibit that. So, Phil?
Okay, back to the money side of things. That's my biggest interest here. If you've ever been to a supervisory board meeting each month, they do talk about where the money gets spent. They have a report from the township manager, and he'll say we spent $14,500 from the general fund and $16,000 from the sewerage fund. And that's it, and that goes in the minutes. If you look online on the website and think, well, I'll get some more information, I typed in budgets, searched on budgets, and I found a preliminary budget for 2018 published in October 2017. That was the only budget I could find on there. So they don't publish what we're spending the money on. They don't publish what the budget is, nor do they publish how we're doing against that budget. Montgomery County requires all municipalities to have an audit board. And Skippack is a 3-person audit board, 6-year term. So there are already 3 people on that audit board who, in my opinion, of course, should be watching where the money's spent. That's what auditors do. We're not the accountants finally signing off the bucks, but should be watching where the money's been spent. When I filed my papers to run for auditor this November, I spoke with the township manager and I said, do you have a documentation on the scope and responsibilities of the audit board? And he said, no, they don't really do much. Which I think is not the right attitude. I think it's the responsibility of the audit board to start looking at those. And if we manage to get elected, if I manage to get elected, I will certainly give it my best shot to publicise some of that. There's certainly been examples of spending in the township that are difficult to understand. I'll give you a particularly egregious one. Back in, I think, April 2016, the township had an assessment on a piece of land called the Conway property. It's just off 73 before you get into Shrewsbury. And it was valued at that point about $340,000, I can't remember the exact number. $336,000, I'm getting my correction here. That's fine, they were thinking of buying it for open space, but they didn't go ahead with it. Then in 2017, Marino Properties, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Mike Marino and family of developers in this area, they started putting in for approvals to develop that land for residential. And they were taking down that path. Finally, they decided to try and get the township to buy that land for open space again. Now that the assessment had gone up because it had been doing some development approvals along the way. So the Mark Marino Properties bought that property in October of 2017 for $523,000, and the township bought it 11 weeks later for $2.1 million. So we had many rationale behind it. One, which is certainly correct, that they have to do it at the assessed value, but the assessment of that property had changed over time because of the usage of it, I guess. I'm no assessment expert. But it was just 11 weeks between those deeds being recorded for sale, purchased by Marino Properties and selling to the township. Other reasons were, well, we had so much money in the open space fund that we had to spend some money. That's coming from taxes. That's not how we should be managing the money in the township in our view. So it is your money. The open space fund is all through taxation. So we will do our best to ask those questions, to try and find out what's going on, and see if we can do it better in Skippack Township.
You guys want to say some more things about your platform before we open it up for questions?
I'll leave it to the questions because we could talk about elementary turf taxes, but I want to know what you guys think about.
I teach at Montgomery County Community College, and I'm getting products of our public schools. So My question has to do with, and I know the school board, basically, you have more influence over budgets and things. My question is there any way that the school board could have more influence over the curriculum? Because one mentioned, somebody mentioned, I think Rena mentioned that you had people who were homeschooled and then also Catholic school. Well, to me, that speaks a little bit of what is the curriculum that's being offered in the public school environment. And it's not just curriculum, it's widespread. Because one of the things that I'm finding as a college professor is that and I teach English, that the students don't know some of the things that they should know. For example, something as innocuous as cursive. Cursive. I know we're tied to computers, but I've had students who say, Dr. Kinsey, I can't read what you have up there. It's a pathetic situation. So that's why I raised my hand first, because I wanted to make sure I got this question in. So we need to do something more with the curriculum, and I'm hoping that you guys will be able to do something.
Well, there's a couple parts to that question.
Yep.
One, we do approve all curriculum. There is a curriculum committee that community members are welcome to, and we would love to have you be a part of that.
I do.
Okay. There's a meeting Tuesday evening. If you send us an email, I'll get you information about it.
Okay.
6:30,
6:30?
high school library.
What we've been asking for is more student voice in those meetings. We want the high schoolers to come to us and tell us, like, what are you interested in? What are we not teaching that you need to know? Our high schoolers are really smart. A lot of them are dual enrolled, taking classes over Sinus or at Montgomery County Community College. We're looking to our graduates to say, what did we not prepare you well enough with to do those things? And as current parents, we definitely ask for changes in the curriculum. So that's a big topic for us right now. But the bigger issue is the state requirements. You all have heard about standardized testing and the PSSAs. That's what schools are teaching towards, because how you score on these tests it factors into teacher evaluations, it factors into funding. So it gets, PSSAs happen, the Pennsylvania State Standardized Assessment happen in April, starting in 3rd grade and go up through 8th grade. I will tell you, in March, my kids stopped learning whatever they were being taught in that class and are taught PSSA stuff. My older son is a very bright child. He's a year ahead in math, so he's in Algebra 2 right now, but the PSSA standard for his age is geometry, so they stopped teaching Algebra 2 and go back to geometry when he learned that 2 years ago, because he needs to be okay to do well in the testing. And that comes down to a financial thing. These testing companies make big money. I see Joe Webster coming in right now. Rena and I were just at his Java with Joe on Friday morning, and he spoke to this. These testing companies are out in Missouri, and they are making huge money off of us because the amount of time it takes to score the testing, the assessment, all of that. And these are 3-week tests. For 3 weeks, our kids are tested for 4 hours straight in the morning. So cursive has been taken out of the 2nd grade curriculum because there's not enough time to teach it and to teach the standards. So very few of our 2nd grade teachers still teach it. There's a couple that have been around for a long time that still say this is an extremely important thing, we're going to make sure you do it. But I'll tell you, my 15-year-old and my 13-year-old can't sign their name. And the same thing, I wrote something on my chalkboard in cursive, and Mom, what does it say?
You know that we're, as the United States, we're a very powerful country, but we're like 26th or 27th in the world in terms of education. That doesn't make sense to me. And to put us even further behind the 8 ball by having them not be prepared to do something as simple as reading cursive is just Yeah, I'm gonna be at that meeting.
No, I mean, that's, we want you at these meetings. If you go to the PB website, there's a committee page that tells you the times and dates, what the committees are about. If something, jumps out at you, if there's a concern you have, please come up. I mean, we'd love to have you. The policy's a big one. School safety, finance.
And I'll just add, that's another reason we think it's really important to have parents on the school board, because if you don't have kids in the schools and you're sitting here making decisions about curriculum, you may just say, oh, okay, administration wants that, fine, but we can all say, no, this is what we want our kids to be doing. This is what parents are saying to us. So that, again, is another reason both Sarah and I are on the curriculum committee. Kim and Laura come usually as often as they can, even though they're not officially on the committee. So that's really something we're passionate about, is we want to know what's happening in our schools and what's the education our kids are getting.
And just to kind of curtail about coming to the meetings, when you go to Perkins Valley's website, you can go to the calendar of events. The greatest thing that I've seen in talking to the different communities, the different 55 and older communities, is the wealth of information and knowledge that you all have, because you've raised children, you've raised families, and professionally, you're really all very accomplished in various things. So many teachers, we've talked to so many administrators that could really pass the torch to our community's future, just because of the things that you know, because of the things you've experienced. And, maybe there's this whole saying that the kids today, we don't even know what jobs they'll have because they don't exist yet. But at the same time, something like cursive, for example, is a perfect example. Elementary sort of math skills, that's another perfect example. Those things are kind of foundation items. Not that they necessarily need to understand that because they need to do it manually, but because it's a foundation and a building block of the other higher thinking skills that they're eventually going to need to conquer. And that's really what the bigger picture of, looking forward to the future is. And so without those voices, the mixture of voices, that's why the student voice is so, important as well. That's what's going to hold the administration and ultimately, the state accountable for what our kids are learning.
Yes, I attended Upper Providence's Meet the Candidate, and they were school board. A large part of the conversation was how much of the budget was allocated to the school district for school safety, and what is the process that you use for school safety? It's much different in every district. It's different, so I'm just curious.
So unfortunately, it's changing. We're still waiting. There's been mandates that have come from the state that they're not even funding yet. So they tried to sort of bridge the gap by offering grants. So they had a two-part grant that we could access. The first one was $15,000. The next one was a lump of $9 million, or $90 million, but it went to anybody in the state, private schools, charter schools, anybody could apply for it. So we did apply for part one, which we had to meet some criteria. We brought on a safety supervisor this year. He's an ex-law enforcement for 35 years, and they're basically redoing the entire thing. We're looking at different ways. We brought in some new software that helps us monitor the classrooms. If there was an event, we're doing new drills, new trainings. We're getting more involved with the law enforcement, state police in the area. We're trying to bridge the gap between the different municipalities that cover. So, we have Upper Frederick, we have the state troopers, we have Collegeville PD, Upper Providence. So we're trying to get them all at the table at the same time if something should happen. So the budget has increased slightly, but it's a work in progress.
Well, what is the process now, God forbid,
Sure.
because it can happen anywhere? What is your process to date?
So it was just safety week last week, so all of our schools practiced drills for the entire week. All of our teachers have had mandatory safety training. In terms of a budget, the safety budget is incorporated into so many different aspects of our budget that there's not just a line that says safety. because we have a technology budget and there's safety that goes along with technology, so that's part of the technology budget. We have our building structure. All of our buildings now have 2 locked doors in order to enter them. You have to press a doorbell, there's a camera there, you have to be let in by front desk. And if you get through the first door, there's a second door that you have to do the same process. We have security, our high school has security all day long. And that budget was increased for the contracted security that we get, because now they're there the entire day because of the evening activities going on. And those security travel regularly to all of our other buildings. So it is a main focus for us. And we are fortunate that we have a great resource in a retired Collegeville police officer who comes to all of our safety and operations meetings. As Matt said, we just hired a great safety supervisor. But we're in a tough position in this district too, in that it's the state police that cover us. So if we have an issue and we call 911, the call goes to the state police. If they're dealing with something else, it could take them a long time to get to some of our schools. Schwenksville's not terribly close. It could take them a long time to get there. There is Collegeville Police Department and there is Lower Frederick Police Department, but you have to hang up the phone and call a different number to get to those. The 911 system, it does not currently work, that it gets transferred to those municipalities.
So we're also trying to be preventative. We installed a software program, a process called Safe to Say. So if a student hears something, someone's talking about, they want to hurt someone else, you can go on anonymously onto this website or call this phone number and make sure that it's passed on, and it's looked at daily, actually hourly. They use it over in Springford, and they stopped a suicide attempt using it. So we have that.
So Safe to Say is state mandated program.
Yeah.
So to answer to the point of what actually the children are doing in the buildings, I think that was part of what your question was. I have a 9-year-old, so the age appropriateness of the reality of needing to deal with this weighs very heavily on my mind as a parent, as I'm sure you could all put yourself in that position, because none of us grew up having to really do that. I am young enough to have, I'll date myself and say, so my senior year of high school was when Columbine happened. That's the before and after point in a lot of people's minds. And I will tell you, that happened in April. The very next day, we had guards and tables at our doors. So it really was a true before and after from that moment on. But that being said, it's even more of a heightened extreme nowadays, right? So as Sarah said, it was Safety Week last week. A very extensive email goes home. I will say that the buildings in general, I can only speak for Skippack because that's where my daughter goes, but I think that the building administration does a very good job of being very transparent in relating what happens in the buildings when drills occur, and then also holding back information in writing to the community at large, because it does go out as an email. The things that you necessarily you don't want said. So there is an element of, it's not safe to relay every single step that the staff and the administration take on to protect our children. The 2 doors is huge. You need to have photo ID. That's huge to pick up your child. Every person in each of our children's schools knows who we are. I still have my license out when I go to pick up my daughter from school. It's just the way that it is now. But I will also say that in reading through the principal's report, they do a very nice job of making it age appropriate. So for example, run, hide, fight, that's sort of the new mode of active shooter lockdowns. For elementary students, it's just run and hide. That sort of thing. They do make it upsettingly, they make it a reality of something that they need to do. They need to be quiet, they can't make noise, that type of thing. But they do it in a way that hopefully minimizes.
That's good.
That's what your question was though, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I have a question about the busing. I understand at the beginning of the fall of 18 school year. The distance a child lived from the school was doubled, that they would have to walk to school, and in some areas, there really aren't sidewalks. And these kids are walking to school, and sometimes school has to be called off because of snow and the streets haven't been plowed enough for the kids to walk to school in the streets. Why is that, and what can you do to rectify it?
So it's
I
actually,
mean, Skippack, those kids that live across the street, the bus comes for them.
no longer. We now have a crossing, a couple of years ago, there was a crossing guard added there. But that was actually a previous board decision. It was before 2018. They cut busing to Perkium Green, which is close to our high school and Evergreen Elementary School. It was a budget savings measure. So we were not a part of that decision. I'm in agreement with you. I have a number of friends who live in that district. There are no sidewalks. There's horseshoes in there, so it's, not the best to see. And these early mornings when our kids are going to the high school and the middle school, it's dark out. But that has not come back to the board since that decision was made. Generally, the way things get changed is a community member brings it up and says that this is a concern. You're the second person on the campaign trail that has mentioned it to me, because I had kind of forgotten about it. It had been 3 years ago or so that they had changed up again before our time on the board. So it's only the second time I've heard anyone concerned about it since that point. And it hasn't actually been from anyone that lives in that neighborhood that has brought it up. So I don't know if they've just gotten used to it, figured it out, have carpools going. I will say that I know a lot of the middle schoolers like walking because they have that freedom after school of like, maybe I want to go across the street to Vincent's and get a pizza before I go home. My kids have asked me if they can walk home, and I live on Heckler Road, and that's not going to happen. But it's interesting, it has not been brought up as a concern to the school board.
That surprises me because I heard it from someone who has a child in that situation and is very concerned about it.
They should come to a school board meeting every.
Or email us.
Email us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know unless we hear it from somebody, so.
The reason that all of us, I think, standing up here are running truly is because there was something that we all saw collectively that we wanted to move change forward. That's the only way that anything will ever change, is if you just have to put it out there and say that you're not happy with it.
I have a question about crosswalks, but this would be for the supervisors. On 73, we were just at Skippack Days a few weeks ago. Crossing 73 is a nightmare. There's going to be a terrible accident there sometime and a tragedy. And what can be done? Why aren't there crosswalks with blinkers and like some communities have?
Yeah, 73 is a state route, so that is something that we would have to partner with the state of Pennsylvania on. And I agree, like I said, I live right behind Skippack Village, and my kids go down there to hang out in the afternoon, and I walk the dogs down there, and it is very dangerous to cross the street, even with the marked crosswalks and the signs that people are supposed to, the drivers are supposed to yield to pedestrians. They don't necessarily, so yeah.
On one of my rounds of door knocking, I met a family who, the little girl said, "Oh, let me run and get my letter." She's 11 years old, and she had typed a letter about how dangerous it was to be in Skippack and shop downtown. And it was a lovely letter. I told her to go to a board meeting, a board of supervisors meeting, and present it. Because again, that's part of the collaboration thing. That's not really happening. I know I have a neighbor who takes his walk through town, and he's always putting the cones and the pedestrian signs back in the road because people come by and take them down for whatever reason, just because it's slowing them down or whatever. But it is dangerous, and I'm very nervous about Skippack Days. It's only a matter of time when something happens. I wish we could appeal to the state to close the road, at least through an event like that, and have it an all pedestrian
They
opportunity.
do it for the parade on the 4th of July.
Exactly, so there has to be a way, so put it on our list.
Thank you.
I might have a question regarding school. And I've written up some questions here that may be a little more challenging, okay?
Bob, do you have a microphone? I don't know if we
I'll
can hear
speak
you.
up good and loud.
Okay.
How's that? All right? First of all, I noticed that the people running for the board are doing it on a bipartisan basis. I have to tell you, I'm relatively new to the area. I never knew that politics was an issue when it came to school boards. So I'm glad to see that. You're all parents of students. From my experience, that's sometimes good, but it also can be sometimes not so good. Depends on how you handle it. Who are the educational professionals and what is the board's responsibility? My career began in teaching and then eventually got into professional services. I worked with a lot of school boards and a lot of school administrators. Some questions and thoughts to throw out, and then we'll see where we go from there. Do you believe it's the job of a school board member to micromanage an individual school? Or should a school board member's job be to write policy and let administrators and teachers run the day-to-day activities at a school? Have you ever asked for special treatment for any of your own children by using your position as a school board member to pressure administration and teachers? Have you ever created board policies for the benefit of your own children? Why did you push to have students carry backpacks at school despite the objections of school administration and teachers? They stated a concern that carrying backpacks compromises security, something we talked about here a little bit a while ago, because students could hide weapons, vapes, drugs, etc. in their bags. I guess times have changed. Did you put the safety of the students at risk because you wanted your own child to carry a backpack? Have you ever contacted teachers personally and accused them of not following board policy instead of using the proper chain of command? Should not the principal have been contacted? Do you find it acceptable to use your position as a school board member to publicly complain at committee meetings about specific teachers, particularly those of your own children? Do you think it's a professional to post things on social media complaining about the school that your child attends? Should a school board member be posting personal opinions on the PV parent page? Sarah, could you answer those questions for me, please?
Those are great questions.
Okay, yeah, that was quite a list.
Micromanaging.
Yeah, micromanage is, no, I heard an analogy at a meeting a couple months ago that I love, that if you're in a cab, that the superintendent is the driver and we're just the passenger, helping her figure out where to go. That she makes the plans and we make the policy or help make the policy of how to get there. It is not our job to micromanage. It is our job to be at the 30-foot level, 30,000-foot level, to make sure the district overall is doing what it needs to be doing, not micromanaging any one school.
And letting teachers make their own decisions in that regard, and influencing teachers.
I will tell you that I can speak personally for Rena and I, that we've been in situations where we have said, do not treat our kids specially because we are board members. I want you, when I've been called about a situation with my kid and they say, how do you want me to handle that? I said, how would you handle that if it were any other child? Before I decided to put my name in to see if I could be appointed to the board, I met with our superintendent and I said, my concern is that if I am on the board, that my child is suddenly going to be treated differently. And I do not want that to happen. I don't want, and she said to me, I make teachers aware that they have a board student in their classroom, which I don't even like that. I think, again, you should be doing the same for every child that you would be doing for my child. My sister is also in the district and has a daughter with an IEP. She was having some issues with that and had reached out to the principal and not gotten a response. And so then she sent the email to the director of special education and to the superintendent and said, I haven't gotten a response on this. This is my concern. I'd like to talk about it. And the superintendent said to me, I'm so embarrassed that your sister did not get a response. Of all people, she should have gotten a response. And I said, again, it should not take it being someone related to me to get a response. It should just be everyone should get a response. So again, we have personally said, no, please do not treat my child any differently than any other student.
Backpacks.
Oh, backpacks. Backpacks were something that we sent a survey out to parents and students, and overwhelmingly it was supported by parents and students. We held a backpack committee where we invited teachers, students, parents to come and have a conversation about that. We only had 2 teachers show up to that, both of whom were against backpacks. Honestly, safety was not the concern. We allow backpacks in high school, and there would be more of an issue with high school students having the vapes and the weapons and that kind of thing. What we found is that if a kid wants to bring a weapon or a vape into school, they're going to do it regardless of what they can carry. I don't know if you guys know vapes now, but they fit pretty easily anywhere. Our students are still bringing them. They stick them in their sleeve and use them during class, unfortunately. So it was not a safety concern. It was actually a concern the teachers had about organization, and that the middle schools were not built for backpacks because where would the students store them? That they didn't have hooks in their classrooms to store them. My thought was, we don't have hooks in the high school, and where do those kids store them? And I know when I went to school, you just hung it on the back of your chair or put it underneath your chair. And there was a trial period with the backpacks, and the students that came to the committee said they felt much more organized when they had their backpack. At middle school, we only allow the students to go to the locker 3 times a day. They're allowed to go first thing in the morning, they're allowed to go at their lunchtime, and they're allowed to go at the end of the day. So they were required to carry their stuff all day long. Most teachers wanted them to have a big binder that they had everything in that. So my 6th grader was carrying around a binder about this thick, in addition to books and a water bottle. And it was a concern for me for his health. And it was a concern that had been brought to me by a number of parents. So it was a conversation that we had. My understanding from administration was that they were not opposed to it, but there definitely were teachers that were opposed to it. Change is hard. And when you make a change, it takes a while for teachers to get used to it. But it's been there since the beginning of the school year, and it's gone well. We haven't heard any complaints. It was not done well last year. The superintendent put it in midway through the year, and that was not the appropriate way to do it, because they already had their supplies, they already had how to do it. So this year we started it at the beginning of the school year, and it went well.
Social media.
Social media.
Putting things, I think the question was putting your own opinions about your students.
Complaining
or
about the
teachers,
school.
Or complaining.
I don't think it's appropriate for us to ever publicly criticize a school. I think those are conversations that should be had in private and should be had in the appropriate chains. I know that we are all on the parents page, and at times we do ask questions, or we do share some information to make people more aware.
But it's with a parent's hat though.
Right.
So the questions these days, last week were, what do people wear to homecoming? What time can we change shoes at homecoming? So as a parent, definitely we'll chime in to those types of commentary. To me, the bigger part of the arc of your questions really had to do with ethics, right?
Complaining about the school.
And, well, in this particular instance, in complaining about the school. So my question back to you is, have you seen that, that I have seen commentary, there are 10 of us running, okay, so there's 10 voices. Of our 5 that are running, I have the personal feeling that we ethically and morally are all running with the same intention and hat on. I have seen other folks running comment in a way that I personally, and I can only speak for myself, would not have put my foot out there to say such a thing. If that's my own personal opinion.
Appreciate that.
What are kids carrying their books in?
What are they carrying their books in? They're now allowed backpacks.
Yeah.
Previously, they were not, and they were required, most of the kids carried it around all day long because they were afraid that if they went to their locker and left anything, that they would get in trouble for not having their necessary supplies. So, especially 6th graders, it's their first year in middle school, so they were very nervous, so they would carry these huge binders, you know. So now they've managed it. And the other good thing is that we approved for all of our students from 6th grade up to have a Chromebook. So we're moving away from physical books a lot. A lot of our classrooms have a classroom set of book, but the books are available online, so the kids don't have to carry their books around. They have their Chromebooks. And that also takes away the need for a lot of notebooks and that kind of thing because they're keeping their notes on the Chromebook, and that can then be shared in a Google Drive that the teacher can share.
You should just point out about the funding for the Chromebooks and that they are not like true computers. That was a question that came up that I think
Right.
it's important.
The funding for the Chromebooks was through a grant from the state. We got a Ready to Learn grant every year, so that was not coming from tax dollars. And Chromebooks are a cheaper laptop. They only have Google capabilities, so they're in the $300 range rather than an expensive laptop.
Just for perspective, only because I think the question that we were asked at our last forum was, what about all the free computers you gave the kids? So I think that was a little bit of a misnomer.
Could you, township folks, talk a little bit about the airport situation over here?
We have. Okay. You want me to start? All right. What do you know?
It's supposed to be developed, and I heard that 50% of the land was supposed to stay undeveloped as part of the deal.
Well, we have 2 drawings up here that Justin was able to get a look at and took a picture through the township building, because you do have a right to know. It was a little bit difficult, Justin's experience in getting this information. So there's one drawing that has gone to the county planning commission, and one drawing that we expect to be the subject of conversation on Monday night at the planning commission meeting. So I'll wait for those to get around. So there's go ahead, Joanne.
I have just a question for Sarah. When we were talking about school safety and who would respond if a school had a problem, and you said if the state police were busy doing, well, what precedent could ever be more important than a school safety?
Right, it's just that the state police cover a large area, so if they're in
But
a different
certainly
area,
if the
they'll
school,
respond, but
they
it
would-
may take them a long time to get there, and we know that in school safety situations, it's an immediate
well,
threat.
if they're right up there on 113, I mean, it's not gonna take them.
It's only if they're in their barracks. If they patrol a very large area, they could be in Green Lane, from Green Lane to Skippack. I mean, that's why we're trying to form a relationship with all the other municipalities.
Yeah, I think that absolutely they would see that as a priority to get there as soon as they can. But what if they're 20, 25 minutes away from the school? That's just the reality.
Do you have a budget for school resource officers or?
We have school security, we do not have armed security in our buildings. That is not a step that
Well,
we've
that's
chosen as a
security.
district to
I didn't know
take.
they had security.
So are we gonna go back, is that a satisfactory answer on that? We'll go back to the airport conversation? So there's really, you're getting two pieces of paper, and I'm gonna let Justin explain the difference between the two. I think I just did, in terms of one has been submitted to the county, and one has not been submitted yet to the county, but we think it's going to be after Monday night's meeting.
Do you have any more copies?
They're coming around.
Okay, so my name's Justin Glennon. I live over on Rosewood Circle, which is adjacent behind the airport. Just to tell you about those papers that were handed out, the one that is a bit darker worked out advantageously actually for delineation. That one is the one that was submitted officially in an advisory capacity from the township planning to the county, and the other one is the one in the works, the one that's a bit brighter, is from down at the township that they have already discussed with the developers. So they're
That's the one that was submitted by the developers.
correct.
The other one is what the township has, what happens, excuse me, but what happens is.
Do you stand, please?
What happens is the first plan goes to the planning commission, and the developer brings it to the planning commission. When they bring that there, the people on the planning commission give suggestions, okay? So when the planning commission gives the developer the questions, they go home from that meeting and they try to incorporate all the suggestions. The second plan is what incorporates the suggestions. Okay?
Which is the brighter one?
No, it's the darker one, Justin. Yes.
You were home.
This is the opening in the center.
Yeah, it's the darker one,
It's the darker one.
the one that's gonna be on.
Lighter one has more houses on it.
I think it's by one home, it was 66 compared to 65. Yes, the darker one is the one that is, that was submitted and was reviewed in review with the developer. The lighter one was the initial plan that was submitted by the developer and in conjunction with the township and advisory capacity with the county.
The lighter, I'm sorry, somebody's talking. So it's the lighter one that's the original? No.
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
That's the original. So this one with a couple of less houses in it is the one that's being.
Yes, but the reason there's less houses is because they decided that we need gazebos, trails, open space, which walks right behind my yard, lots of other things. So what they're trying to do from the developers is, and what they do all the time, and they did it here, and they did it at the Meadows, and, you know, whatever. So they try to get everything they can from the developer. So that makes them look like they're doing their job. But in essence, their job should be to keep it R1 residential instead of, what is it, the other? RA residential, which makes it much denser zoning. So in essence, these houses, well, I know some of the houses in here can be 3,000 square feet. They're compartmentalized, okay? They're small, short and long. I sold the Meadows for 10 years. So these houses will be big houses on lots not much bigger than here, okay?
Like a quarter of an acre, a big house.
Yes, and more people are gonna live in those houses. In here, you have 2 people, maybe 3 people in a house. Over there, you're gonna have at least 3 cars. Everybody, and my street has 4, okay? Cars, people, it's just more density that we don't need. So we do not have a plan in place for R1 residential.
So the, from what I studied, actually, it was, RA was what this was zoned for, agricultural. And in an RA situation, the lot sizes would be 75,000 square feet. But RA, the overlay permits, and there is a community design overlay that permits lot sizes to go down to 12,500. So everything that you're hearing here in terms of what the implications are on infrastructure is what we're concerned about. We would love to be able to influence at future meetings, because we're still early in the process, to go back to larger lot size. You would cut your numbers of people, numbers of cars, and your impact to the surrounding properties and roads by, who knows, a third or half. So go ahead, Lenore.
When you're talking about RA and you're talking about 85,000 square foot lots, that's before we had,
75.
that's before we had infrastructure in the township. Because my house and my development, which we subdivided over 30 years ago, had that zoning. Because there were no sewers, there were no water in the area, so you, in order to have wells and septic systems, you had to have larger lots. Now, the average lot is 40,000 square feet. That's R1 residential, okay? The airport was still in the RA zoning, but it's much more favorable, in my estimation, for it to continue to be R1 as opposed to the overlay zoning, which gives us much more density.
And as there's a second, if you look at the top, I believe it would be the top if you're holding it where you can read the writing correctly. You see Rosewood Circle. And that's how these folks got involved, because there's a second development planned there. It's like 16 or 18 homes, Lenore?
18, I believe.
Justin? And that is going to bust through their cul-de-sacs. They have had
After
cul-de-sacs
30
of
years.
custom homes on a road that really is quite narrow. And that's going to bust through there. So there's an additional 18 homes behind there. So this gets back to, I don't want to say I'm not against development, but it needs to be smart and it needs to take into consideration the wishes of the community. So I think one of Justin's requests, you want to make the request? Getting people out if they're concerned.
And then answering questions.
I mean, it has been very tough for me. I've gone out on my bike just to go door to door, knocking on people's doors. I've left some information here out on doors, and has been in communication with the association as well. It's just really tough with busy people in our area to get involved. And one of these concerns is I've lived here almost my entire life. And it's a really quiet area, and this is a really quiet neighborhood too, and it's beautiful, and everybody does a great job here. And barely, I mean, I can basically see this neighborhood, and I don't hear anybody, see anything, and come down this road every day. One of those things for people being involved is that if we have a lack of infrastructure, and you have people coming outside, you're gonna have a four-way here. We're gonna have a four-way at Mount Airy Road. Are they going to put stop signs? Are there going to be lights and crosswalks and crossing guards and things of that nature? So we notice that those things haven't been brought up to the Board of Supervisors. And when those are brought up by more individuals in the township who are not just directly affected, because it affects all of us, that puts them in a position to not be so hesitant to give us the information. Because once we all come together to ask for information, they will be more forward in giving said information if more of us attend the meetings. Most of the meetings I go to have maybe 5 to 10 people. It's just, we're all busy, but there are, as they had stated, to make more information available to everyone on the website. You could work in conjunction with when you're busy, and when you're not busy, go to the website and get more information straight to your email address. And I would really like to thank these three over here who have met with me, Phil and Kathy and Karen, and they have really been concerned about this issue. This has been something that has been close to me as I've lived here for a long time, and they have done a great job at being concerned, getting information, getting other people in touch with me, and giving me the resources available to start my research and get others involved. So I just wanted to state that what a great job they've been doing in the inclusion of other members of the community just at this outset of their campaign. And they've done this with other people as well. So I just wanted to commend them on how forthcoming they were with other citizens of the township.
Are they trying to fast track this thing through? I've heard that. I don't know whether it's true or not. But it seems to me as though they're not giving a lot of thought to the infrastructure, everything that goes in to putting in new homes. And the only way that we can stop this thing or reevaluate it is to put you guys in office, and you will sit down and do what think would be the right thing.
The other thing is to go to the meetings.
Yes.
Yes,
That's number one.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the papers that we just passed out has the dates and times for the upcoming relevant meetings. And on the back, there are even some questions that we had and that we thought other people might have about the effects that this will have on infrastructure and the community, traffic, and other issues like that. Lenore?
One of the reasons that we're here is to ask for your support, because we have not got a lot of cooperation from the township. We had to actually go to Montgomery County, what's the law? What's the Sunshine Law? To get the first plan, because they wouldn't give it to us. And then when Justin went down, the township manager allowed him to take a photocopy of it. That's why one of the pictures is so bad. So we're asking for support, since you guys are going to be directly affected, as we are, that if you go to some of the meetings. Now, we don't know for sure, like, we're going to go to a planning committee meeting tomorrow night. But because they're really not forthcoming about what's going on at the meetings, we don't really know for sure if they're going to talk about this tomorrow night. But if we don't go to the meetings, because this happened to us while they're opening our road, they didn't tell us about any of it. They put the signs on Mill Road so no one saw it. We weren't aware of it, and by the time it got to be voted on, it was too late. And we didn't have any input. They don't want us to go there, okay? They don't want us to rock the boat. And as far as you're asking the question about fast tracking, there's a procedure that they have to follow. So a subdivision that big I don't think it can be fast tracked, like to get it done in months. It's going to take probably a year or 2 years to get through. But you still have to start in the grassroots.
Yes.
Because if we wait, then we won't have any voice.
You have to get yourself on record as individuals, and you can do it here as an HOA as well. I don't know if your HOA president is in the room, but you can encourage the HOA to also put in a request that's on the document that we handed out via email, that you want to be informed of all future meetings on this issue. And it's of record, and each of you who send an individual email and your HOA will have to get information about all upcoming meetings so that you will know the process and you will know when to engage in the process. If there are some serious things that you're really concerned about, legal representation is another option. But you'd have to probably band together to do that.
Did you mention they're considering putting in 83 homes across the way? Is that what you said?
It's 65 in the plan that we know is being presented tomorrow night. Lenore, the agenda just came out last night.
Okay.
And that is the discussion tomorrow night at the Planning Commission meeting. And then behind that, going through Rosewood Circle is another 18.
And from your standpoint, do you have an idea what you think might be appropriate?
I think I'd be concerned about the infrastructure. I'd be concerned about the schools. I'd be concerned about fire safety. I'd be concerned about those basins that they're planning. And I would recommend that you go back to the 75,000 square foot lots or 40,000 square foot lots to reduce the footprint in that piece of land, on that piece of land. We also, I don't know if you're like me, I volunteer at Philadelphia Zoo. I'm an animal person and an environmentalist. I'm concerned about where all of these animals are going. We see them dead on the streets. We have deer problems because we're just creating less space for them to live in and for us to enjoy them.
Since this property has been an airport for so many years, I'm concerned about how they tested the soil to see what effect that's going to have on water and...
You should ask that question if you go to the meeting tomorrow night. I think that's one of the ones listed. If it's not, it should be. Yeah, they've stored things over there because it hasn't been an airport for a while. Someone told me there was asphalt stored over there. There's certainly been fuel, right? So that's certainly a fair question and one that you deserve answers to.
Who bought this property? What is the name of the person or organization that bought this property?
This is Audubon Land Development that has developed this. I believe that is Nielsen corporation.
You know the senior places in Audubon, the high rises?
Shenandoah.
Shenandoah.
That's Donald Nielsen's company.
The owner of Shenandoah.
They're first cousins to the Jubs, and they sold it to them.
Any other questions on this subject? Okay, well, do we want to, oh, there's a question.
I've heard that that Skippack Township has grown enough that the state police are thinking about or have decided that they will not be our police force anymore and that we need to provide our own. Is that true, or is that just?
I'm not. Let's have Joe Webster.
Yes, we have our state rep, Joe Webster here, so I'll give him.
Well, thanks, and this is really an exciting day. I'm sorry I was here late. My wife was at a family reunion and returning to Philly Airport, so I had to do family things before coming here today. But I do want to say hello just for a little bit, and I'll just tell you, I'm a freshman representative, so I've been doing this about 9 months, if it's October and you subtract 1 from January. Originally a Philly kid, and then I spent my primary career in the Air Force. So my wife Laura and I, and what are now 3 grown children, returned in 2011 to Pennsylvania. And we were part of the MATHAC, and I live in Lower Providence, so I have 2 MATHAC grads in my family. And I'd be glad to stay afterward and talk specifically about state issues or if you have questions, but I think today it's really important to acknowledge our supervisor candidates and Phil Wimpenny as auditor and the school board candidates, because I think there's a trend that really impresses me as someone who's a little bit outside the political arena up until a year ago and can be somewhat objective to see the initiatives around objective, good government questions about finding out what's really best for the community and how you link good ideas together. And I've watched that. If you picked up some of your handouts, I've watched it at the Montgomery County level, where the current commissioners, Dr. Valar Cush and Ken Lawrence, were able over a 3-year period to change a bond rating to AAA. They've increased that, and if you're a business person in the audience, that then enabled them to renegotiate loans and debt, which reduced the tax burden. And Montgomery County has the lowest taxes of all the suburban counties around Philadelphia. And it's a result of good government. And I see the same trends when you talk about sort of just the transparency, the openness of saying, there's a big property in the airport, it's going to need to be developed and renewed in some way. How does the community, react to that? And then how do you take care of all the other things that are impacted? And I thought the question here, because my Air Force experience, if that's an airport, they've stored fuel there forever. They have to have spilled it, right? That just happens. They had fire retardants there, high chemical kinds of things. I think that's immediately a question I would ask is, how is, what's the plan to remediate that so that when it becomes a front lawn and someone's children, is playing in the front yard, that it's safe for them. And then the water.
Not recommend it at this time. So it's something that's still there. Conversations are being continued to be had about it, but at this point it was not the right move for Perkiomen Valley.
Well, I for one would like to thank all of you for coming out here to talk to us, to answer questions. I'd like to thank all of you for coming in and sharing your time with us. There's lots of food. If you have a chance, talk to them individually and make sure you get home in time for the game.